Okay, so welcome everyone that's already here. You might be seeing us on X, LinkedIn, Twitch, or YouTube. Just gonna double check that's actually the case. Okay, this is looking good. Fantastic. Yep. So we're looking like, oh, but I'm not muted. That's the only downside. Hold on. There we go. Now it's muted. That's always the important bit. Well, so if you're here this wonderful morning, please feel free to say hello. We're a little bit early, so we're not going to start yet. I'm just going to post a little hello message to everyone. Hello, early birds. Okay. And feel free to, during this lecture, if at any point you want to say hi, feel free to say hi. So we will do a Q&A that's at the end. So you can always send your questions in the chat and we'll answer after the presentation today. Just so you know the procedure of things. Okay, fantastic. Perfect. So I'm just going to wait a little bit until the rest of everyone arrives here. Okay, so we've got the first people coming in. Good morning to all of you. Good morning to everyone that's made it. Good morning, Taylor. Good morning, Sanas. Good morning, Matthew. Great that you're joining us bright and early. We are now at 9 o'clock. So if you got your morning coffee ready and you came to us for this live stream today, then I am excited to welcome you all and thank you so much for taking the time to show up. Now, today, our lecture is going to be sketching in the design process. And I've got an amazing guest lecturer with me here today, Krisztina. Now, I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Is that Szeróvay? You can probably correct it a little bit. But Krisztina is a designer with 10 plus years of professional experience, and she runs a publication that you might know that's called the UX Knowledge Base. She's got a sketching for UX designers course. That's actually how I found her first. That has more than 22,000 students in Udemy. She has also a course on development fundamentals for UX designers and a new course called How to Train Your Designer Eye. That's about your design skills and how you develop them effectively so that you find inspiration, you analyze designs, you practice and experiment. She's published a free workbook that you can find on her Lemon Squeezy, I think. That's called Sketching for UX Designers. And she frequently updates those design resource databases, startyourdesigner.com, which contains her favorite design resources. Her book, The 100-Day-Long UX Visual Library Building Challenge, is available on Amazon and also as a free ebook. And she's teaching several design bootcamps. I would say she's the foremost expert when it comes to design sketching. So no pressure, Krisztina. So excited that you could make the time for us. I'm excited if you could share some of your expertise with us today. So without further ado, over to you. Welcome.
Everyone, and thanks for this great intro and for inviting me to give you a guest lecture. And I'm going to talk about sketching in the design process, and UI sketching will only be a smaller part of this presentation. I just wanted to make it clear. And please let me know in the comments what your experience with sketching is. How do you use or have you used sketching in the your design process or during your design work. And we can discuss all this after the presentation. I believe we are going to have 15 minutes of Q&A in the end. So I am Krisztina, and probably you can tell right away that I love sketching and visual thinking. And I am a lead designer and researcher at FinTech Lab, and that's an innovation and design lab backed by a Hungarian bank. And as Lennart already mentioned, I am an online teacher too. I have 3 courses on Udemy. One is about sketching for UX designers. So how can you apply sketching in the design process and make it more effective? The second one is about how designers and developers can collaborate more effectively. And the newest one, I launched it last year, is about how you can develop an eye for design and how you can apply design inspiration and analyze UI designs and practice. And I would like to give the students of this course some coupons for my courses, 2 free coupons and 1 big discount. These are valid for 5 days, and please reach out to the organizers to get them. And please let me know if you encounter any problems on Udemy when you try to use them. And I also do mentoring at companies, and I teach data visualization and usability testing at UI Academy and ideation at X Labs. These are comprehensive design bootcamps here in Hungary. And giving back to the community is one of my core principles. So I create a lot of content, and you can find 160 UX knowledge-based sketches on this website. And I am passionate about visual thinking. For instance, I create sketch notes during conferences, and I use visuals during meetings and workshops to facilitate a shared understanding. And this is my article about the benefits of creating sketch notes. And I just wanted to mention that you will get this presentation with all the links and the speaker notes right after this lecture. And this is an example sketch note from the Smashing conference last year, and I published an article that contains all my sketch notes from that conference, so you can check them all out. And as Lennart also mentioned, I have a Sketching for UX workbook. It helps you practice drawing basic shapes and icons and other UI elements, and you can download it for free. And I also published a little book about establishing a UX-related visual library. And if you complete this challenge, you will end up with more than 500 icons drawn by yourself. And the digital version of this book is also a free resource. And again, I added the link in the speaker notes. And this is how one day of the challenge looks like, things to sketch out on the left, and my solutions from the previous days on the right. And I wrote about this challenge in this article. And I graduated as a lawyer, which proved to be a surprisingly good background for UX. I learned the importance of consistency, attention to details, and thinking in complex systems. And during my legal PhD studies, my research was about the usability of e-government websites. So I was able to study UX in a legal doctoral program. So it was a great hack or cheat code. And I like to play board games and video games. And I mentioned in the beginning that I work as a design lead. However, lately I have been focusing on a very different type of project. I am currently on maternity leave, but I still do mentoring and teaching, and I create content. And throughout this presentation, I will highlight some key takeaways, since I want my advice to be directly applicable in your work or in your practice. So my question is, do you remember some things from my intro? Maybe you remember a bit more than compared to your usual experience. So my advice is that next time you facilitate a workshop or give a presentation to new stakeholders or teams, try out this visual introduction technique to make your intro more memorable. And let me give you a quick introduction to sketching and visual thinking. I like to explain why sketching is great with this picture. It's from Jeff Patton's book, User Story Mapping. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And as you can see, these team members think that they all agree. And then they externalize their thoughts and realize that, oh, we have completely different things in mind. And then they combine their ideas and reach a truly shared understanding. And so this illustration is about mainly two things. One is the importance of externalizing your thoughts, and the other is that by combining our knowledge and perspectives, we can reach a shared understanding that also incorporates the individual starting point. And visual thinking and sketching is not about being artistic. Anyone can draw. This example is from my Sketching for UX course. I sketch out 3 animals, and when I start to sketch out the fourth one, you might think that, oh, it's going to be a cow. However, it's a giraffe. And this example illustrates two things. We only have to concentrate on the most important characteristics, like the long neck, to recognize something. And in doubt, we can always use labels or annotations to make our message clearer. So whether it's an ideation workshop or a design sprint or a design critic session, sketching in the design process is not about being artistic. So how can you apply sketching in the design process? I have a poster that summarizes just that, and you can download it, of course. I apply sketching when I want to think through something on my own, and I also use it as a communication tool. So if I want to explain something, I just sketch it out. And sketching is not only an individual activity. There are many cases when you can apply collaborative sketching and problem solving. And Chris Palton has an excellent article about how he uses sketching in the design process. You should check it out and read it, because it's really great. And my hope for today is that I will be able to inspire you by showcasing how sketching can be applied in the design process. And in this presentation, I am going to show you many examples from my own practice. And I also designed a practice activity for you that you can complete today, so that you can try out some of the ideation techniques I am going to talk about. And so why you should sketch in the first place. I really like this tweet from Holly. And by the way, you should follow him on Twitter or X. He is the founder of UNO, a famous design agency, and he also worked for Twitter. And he says that do 50 sketches on paper before you open a design tool. And someone asks him, how is paper better? And I think that he summarizes this beautifully. He says that it's much faster, it's low fidelity, you don't get attached to it, and your brain is in a different mode. And so sketching in the design process can be both an individual and a collaborative activity, and it's also a great communication tool. And now I would like to show you some examples for this. So one thing you can use sketching for is collaborative problem solving and ideation. And I have a lot of experience with both in-person and remote workshops. And in case of remote workshops, I use Miro and FigJam a lot. And I would like to show you my ideation workshop format. And you will see that almost all the activities I will mention can be used both on your own and also in a collaborative setting. And maybe there is only just one exception, an exercise called Master Flow, but we will talk about it soon. And just to clarify, you will be able to use collaborative sketching during any types of design meetings or workshops. The label doesn't matter. So depending on the experience level of the participants, I explain the benefit of collaborative ideation and the sort of rules of brainstorming. So for instance, if it's a workshop with stakeholders new to these techniques, or it's an educational setting, I start with these points. Of course, if it's a meeting with my design team, I don't talk about these. So first, I usually highlight that one obvious benefit of collaborative ideation is that you can bring together different perspectives, viewpoints, experiences. And I always use the working alone together technique. It means that during each exercise, first there is individual work, and then participants share their results. And that way, there is no risk of dominating personalities sort of overshadowing the more introverted team members. Crazy ideas are great means that, let's say you think that having a teleport would solve a given problem. And now the question is, how can you translate this to real world things or real solutions? So crazy ideas can serve as a starting point for your thinking, which leads to my next point. We can build on each other's ideas, for instance, tweak them a little bit. And as I showed, externalizing your thoughts will help you reach a shared understanding. And you should go for quantity first. And among the many, many not so great ideas, you will find some truly good directions. And time boxing these activities is a feature, not a bug, that enables teamwork, and it also prevents participants from overthinking things. And you can always apply a technique called parking lot, and all the ideas that are not directly related to our current topic can go to this parking lot, and we can save them for later. And in order to have a successful workshop, a good technique I usually use is that I send out an email or a Slack message to the participants about how they can prepare for the workshop, like what tools they should prepare, and in case of a remote workshop, how they can quickly upload their photos to the online tool or online canvas tool we are going to use. And I also remind them that it would be great if they could turn on their cameras. And over the years, I developed a 4-hour-long workshop format for ideation, and I would like to walk you through the activities I included, and hopefully you will be able to apply this or something similar in your own practice. And I will talk about each section in a bit more details. And of course, you can use these techniques outside of a workshop setting, or you can create your own mix of activities. So I will talk about my favorite warm-up exercise, crazy eights, storyboarding, sketching out user flows, and creating master flows, and making solution sketches or UI sketches. And by the way, this is a screenshot of a completed workshop done in Miro. And this was another session done in FigJam. And you can see that there are many, many hand-drawn sketches uploaded to this online canvas. So it was great for remote collaboration. And as part of the preparation phase of such workshops, I usually ask participants some days before the workshop to create quick thumbnail sketches of themselves and upload these sketches to that online canvas tool we are going to use. And that way they can get to know each other a bit better, and they can also practice the process of uploading their sketches to this online whiteboard tool. And this is my favorite icebreaker exercise. I ask participants to fill a paper with 8 to 10 random squiggles. It warms up their muscles, and everyone grabs a pen and a paper. So it's the first step towards sketching for some hours. And then I tell the participants that these squiggles are actually birds, and I ask them to add wings and eyes, legs, and beaks. And so this exercise demonstrates that we are pattern recognition machines. So once I say that, okay, these are birds, everyone can see the birds inside these squiggles. And it also demonstrates that you can draw, and it's really not about being artistic, and some lines are enough. These are some examples from the previous workshops, and I learned this technique from Dave Gray, and you can read about it on his website. And before talking about the other activities I included, I wanted to mention that there is a prerequisite of such workshops, and it's knowing the target audience, or at least having some assumptions that hopefully will be validated later. So for example, having how might we questions, problem statements, or personas. And of course, if it's an educational setting, it's fine to use some example projects like we are going to do after this lecture. And so the first actual sketching activity is conducting Crazy 8 sessions. You might have heard about this technique. It's about setting the timer for 5 minutes, or in another version for 8 minutes, and quickly sketching out 8 ideas. And it means you are going to have 40 seconds or 1 minute per sketch. So you won't have time to add many details. It's all about ideas and exploration. And you can do this alone or in a team setting. And you should always do more than one round. So 8 ideas and then 8 ideas again, since after the first round, participants share their ideas with each other. So they can build on each other's ideas. And the second round is also for the non-obvious ideas. And it can be about any types of solutions, so online or analog, or you can laser focus it on one specific UI element. For instance, once we did a Crazy 8 for a currency conversion UI element with my team. And these are some of the results of such Crazy 8 sessions. And the next activity is storyboarding. And I just wanted to mention that in the design industry or in the design literature, there are different interpretations of this method. There is one described by Jake Knapp in the Sprint book, and it's about creating a detailed screen flow, so sequence of screens or pages based on Crazy 8s and solution sketches. But here I am going to talk about another approach where a storyboard is a visual illustration of key moments in a customer's or user's journey that supports empathy and a shared understanding. And just to mention some of the benefits of this technique, we can discover the so-called magic moments. These are unrealistic points based on false assumptions. I will tell you an example very soon for these magic moments. And we can determine what interactions are needed at the given points. And it can also reveal missing points or holes in the design concept. And there are at least 2 phases in the design process where storyboarding might be very useful. One is the ideation phase, and the other one is the validation phase, when we conduct storyboard review sessions with users or domain experts. This is an example storyboard. As you can see, the UI appears only as a rough sketch, indicating that the main character uses an application at this point. And it also contains the narrative, the sequence of actions, emotions, thoughts, motivations, needs, and also the time frames. And I don't really like templates, but they work really well in workshop settings. And I usually use this template. There is a trigger or a pain point, and there is also a solution, and there are steps in between. And next to visuals, you can also add text to each frame. And I ask participants to sketch out a so-called future state storyboard, meaning that they imagine a future where their solution, product, or feature already exists. And you can, of course, apply current state storyboards too. These are great for empathizing with your user's current problem space. And here is a trick I learned from Yuri Malishenko. You can apply sticky notes so that anxious workshop participants can freely start to draw, and then they can just quickly remove the sticky and start over. And in my experience, it truly helps. And once I worked on a board game event organizer application, and after creating the storyboards, I visited a local board game club, and I asked some users to review them. So it was part of the validation phase. And one of the participants pointed out a so-called magic moment. He said that it's not realistic that someone would wait 35 minutes in a club to join a gaming group. It was just my false assumption. And they told me that in reality, one group would let her join, or the shop assistant would offer her a solo game till she waits for a group to finish an ongoing game. So storyboards help the team and the client empathize, and it helps you do a sort of reality check and to identify key moments of a journey. I included some recommended resources, like all my relevant sketches, and I highly recommend this article by Chris Palton. Eva Lottalam created a great resource that will help you sketch out people, and she recently gave a talk about sketching out user scenarios. So back to the ideation workshop format, these are some results of some storyboarding exercises. And the next task during this workshop is about mapping out user flows and creating a so-called master flow. And I really like to apply the so-called thumbnail sketches that contain only the main message or the goal of a given page and the main user action. And it helps you scope a project and to get a bird's eye view. And this one is blurred due to NDA, but it's an online personal loan application process shown in more than 20 thumbnail sketches. And you can do this by using sticky notes, of course, so that you can easily add or remove or rearrange steps. And as you can see, the UI is very low fidelity. And in case of remote workshops, it's also a good practice to leave out these little low fidelity sketches and just use text. So for instance, in case of booking.com, this is the level we are going for first when we sketch out a user flow, what the page or screen is about and what the main user action is. So there is a home page with a search. You add a search query, then you get a search results page, you select one result, and then on the property detail page, you can reserve a room. And during the workshop, you can ask participants to quickly map out a chosen user flow. They should use different colors. For instance, one team member uses blue, the other one uses yellow, and so on. And you might ask why. Because after some individual work, they can merge their flows by creating a so-called master flow. So, for instance, here is the master flow of creating a toast. Everyone got 5 sticky notes to map out 5 steps of the flow, and everyone used a different color. And then we combined our flows, starting with the outermost step, and we put the same steps in a column. And you can see that only one participant thought about actually buying the bread, while 4 participants added the slicing step. And in the end, we got a 14-step long flow. So usually I tell participants to use 8 sticky notes, and as I mentioned, everyone should use a different color. And here you can see that the second step of the flow is the most obvious. Maybe it's a key screen since everyone thought about it. And the team members who used the color purple and the one who used blue were very valuable members of the team, since they each has 3 steps that no one else thought about. Here are some examples or example results of these exercises, and I included my sketch. And so my workshops are usually like funnels. After some general idea generation with Crazy Eights, we set the context by using storyboards, and then I ask participants to sketch out flows, and then we zoom into the page or screen level with some layout or UI sketching, and then we also add specific UI elements. And my sketching course on Udemy is a 4-hour-long course on sketching, so of course it would be unrealistic to teach participants everything about sketching, but I like to highlight some main concepts from this course before participants start UI sketching. So one key concept is annotating your sketches, meaning that you add little pieces of explainer text next to your sketches so that it's more comprehensible. And you should also establish a visual hierarchy inside your sketch. You can apply color or use a thicker pen, increase an element's size, and you can also add shadows to better direct the viewer's attention. Here are some shading techniques. You can easily indicate what element is a button, for example, and what is a form field. And you can also indicate the gestures we apply on our touchscreen devices, and even UI animation can be sketched out easily. One thing you can do is to use a different color and a dashed line to show the new state. And usually I also talk about the different fidelity levels and what I recommend for the given exercise. And I also like to show not so good examples. For instance, this is not a good practice because we should avoid decoration without meaning. And again, here the data ink ratio is not right. There are many distracting areas. And here is my summary sketch of my favorite UI sketching tips. That's the second part. This is a page from my Sketching for UX workbook. In my experience, many participants struggle with their handwriting. So if you also want to improve your handwriting, this exercise might be useful for you. Here are some examples for UI sketching. So this was my ideation workshop format. Naturally, it's just one possible mix of exercises. And as I mentioned, you can use these activities on your own as well, so not only in a collaborative setting. And my advice is that if you want to organize or facilitate such workshops, manage expectations before these workshops, like what tools they will need. And it's also important to make participants grab a pen and a paper as soon as possible. So in my experience, these are key to have a successful workshop. And there are, of course, many other methods and workshop templates you can use. For instance, Session Lab is a workshop designer tool, and it has a huge library of techniques. For instance, you should check out Lightning Decision Gems by AJ Smart. And one more good resource I would like to recommend is this Facilitation for All. This is a toolkit collection by the Butter community. And at this point, I would like to say some words about visual storytelling, since I think that as designers, we should develop good storytelling skills, and using visuals can make storytelling much more efficient. So as I mentioned, storyboards tells your users stories. And here is Anna Yurchenko's sketch about the parts of a story. There is a goal, a crisis, obstacles, and finally a resolution. So we basically capture the stories of our users in a storyboard. And some years ago, I facilitated a visual storytelling 101 workshop with Yuri Malishenko. And you can read my detailed article about it, and you can watch back the whole thing. It's more than 2 hours long. And as part of this presentation, I only want to highlight one part of that storytelling workshop. Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud is a highly recommended book for any designers. I love this book, and I really like the idea of amplification through simplification. And we apply this idea during UI sketching and ideation all the time. We focus on specific details and strip down concepts to its essential meaning or to the relevant parts. So that way we can amplify those parts, and we can focus on the important moments or touch points, for example, inside a user journey. And this is my sketch about storytelling. And before moving on to my next topic, I would like to show you some more examples from my other workshops. In this case, I gave a detailed prompt to participants. I asked them to sketch out solutions for a math and color game application for little children. And this was a group activity. I encouraged them to work alone together, then upload their sketches. discuss those sketches as a group and then upload a combined solution. This is from a landing page workshop format. On the left, you can see my example sketch. I quickly explain how they can sketch effectively, like how to indicate images, how to add annotations, and so on. And on the right, you can see the pages to be redesigned. And the participants' task was to come up with a redesign based on the things I shared during the workshop. And these are some of the solutions. So these sketches were done by the participants. And as I mentioned, you don't have to facilitate long workshops. Sometimes ideation is just a 10 or 15-minute part of a meeting. You can laser focus on one smaller problem or on a feature. For instance, these are loading screens for an online application process we designed collaboratively. And to close this section, I included my sketches about ideation. And I hope I could give you a starting point for learning these techniques. And as I mentioned, you can use them on your own or in a collaborative setting. And one more method I would like to talk about is mind mapping. And again, it can be used on your own or collaboratively. A mind map is a visual representation of related concepts that shows hierarchical relationships. And you can add connector lines and colors and containers and little icons or use the benefits of spatial arrangements. And my intro was a mind map too. And so mind maps are great tools for systematically mapping out a system or a product. You have objects and attributes and relationships and user actions and so on. And let's say you design an online marketplace. There are communication types like messages and comments. There are different user roles and products or listings. And it's a very flexible tool. You can add any aspects you want, like user goals or business goals. And the great thing is that as you dig deeper, you will find more and more layers and more questions. And for instance, I designed a conference organizer some years ago, and we started out with these items like the venue and the events, and they having attributes like the maximum number of participants. And so this initial set helped me to add more layers to this whole concept, like how registration will work, what will be the different ticket types, what are the different attendee groups, what happens if someone signs up for an event and then decides to join another event. So for example, will there be a wait list, or what happens if there are more than one venues? Should we introduce a map view then? And so in my already mentioned visual storytelling workshop, I shared a train analogy I invented for breaking down complex concepts or systems. And so this is an activity we do very often as designers. So the analogy is about how would you explain what a train is for an alien. Anytime you need to understand a complex system, my recommendation is that ask these questions. So think about what the essential parts are, like it has an engine and it needs railroad tracks. And then you can zoom in, like how the train actually works. What are the parts of this system? What are the relationships between these parts or elements? Are there any dependencies? For instance, the locomotive should be the first one. Are there any constraints, like it runs along a railroad track? What is optional and what is not? And there are many other attributes like speed, timetable, wagon types. And there are also related concepts like stations and tickets. And you can also zoom out and, for instance, see the train system as a map. And you can also think about the processes, like map out the process of buying a ticket. It's like a user flow. And our job as designers is to take a concept and identify what is relevant so that we can reduce the inherent complexity. And in my experience, this set of questions always help. And the reason I brought this up is that you can apply, for instance, mind maps to list out these aspects and and discover a complex system. So my advice is that organize your thoughts and ask good questions using mind maps. This is my sketch about mind maps. And now I would like to share some more examples for sketching in the design process from my own practice. For example, these pre-made sketches is a technique I came up with. Let's say I know in advance that we are going to discuss some specific screens or parts with stakeholders or with the domain experts. And I create UI sketches with my proposed solutions. So before the workshop in advance. And I also create some copies. And then I give one stack of sketches to each participant. And that way they can better focus, they can immerse themselves in the activity, and they can also feel a bit of an ownership since they can, annotate the sketches and modify some parts as we talk about my proposed solutions. And some more examples, for instance, this is an onboarding screen with a lot of annotations. This was actually a deliverable. This is a collaborative sketching on a whiteboard. And this is an empathy map with little icons to make each aspect more comprehensible. This is a quick sketch of a loan product page. I used it as a so-called talking sketch, meaning that I augment my words with visuals as I explain what I am thinking about. And I also do digital sketching sometimes. This is a user flow with a lot of annotations, and I created it in a software called Concepts, but of course Procreate is great too. This is how I illustrated my course using sketches. And sometimes I use little icons on my printed out research transcripts. For instance, I mark issues or surprises. I also illustrate my articles with sketches. This is about designing for different screen sizes. This is an example of a live sketch note from the WebExpo conference. And just a funny example, I worked a lot with a startup and they didn't want to throw away the hundreds of sticky notes we produced during our workshops, so they reused them as a toilet decoration. And some other great examples from other professionals I really admire so that you can get inspired by them. This is how Figma variants looked like on early sketches on a whiteboard back in 2019. This is a map by Joe Natoli, a visual CV by Yuri Malishenko. This is a detailed UI sketch with a lot of annotations by Chris Palton, a sketch note by Eva Lottalam, another sketch note by Mauro Toselli, a product page by Mike Rodi, author of the Sketchnote Handbook. And Rasmus Andersson was one of the first employees of Spotify back in 2006. And he wrote that sketching on good old paper beats all early stages prototyping software. These are some more Spotify sketches. And I also linked an interesting case study by Shopify. They explain how they came up with this internal tool for employees that help them decide how they want to allocate their salary. And they used these data visualization sketches first, and then arrived to this solution. And before talking about your practice activity for today, here are some more resources. These are the visual thinking books I recommend, or at least this was my collection some years ago. Since then, of course, I bought some more. And I maintain a database of my favorite design and visual thinking resources. It's startyourdesigner.com. And I run a monthly newsletter. I send out my favorite design and visual thinking links each month. And also subscribers get early access to my newest UX knowledge-based sketches. And I heard that you, the students of this course, will have 3 to 5 hours today to complete a design challenge, and that you will work in teams of 3 people. And so I created a practice activity for you. It's about designing a baby tracker application. Here is a short project overview. The baby tracker app is a mobile application designed to assist new parents in tracking their baby's daily activities, health, and development. And it will simplify the process of managing a newborn's needs by providing, of course, a user-friendly interface for logging, feeding, sleep, diaper changes, growth, and milestones. And so the goal of this app is to help parents feel more confident and organized. Here are some app objectives. Please read them later. And I created a primary persona for you, Olivia. I generated her with the thispersondoesn'texist.com website. And ideally, you can conduct some research, but for today, you are going to use this proto persona I created for you. Here is a detailed description of Olivia's background and goals. And I modified some things, but ChatGPT helped me a lot here. And these are her needs and challenges and motivations. Again, please read it later with your team. And by the way, I'm sure you have heard about personas, but here is my sketch about defining your target audience. And I wrote one possible how might we question for you. Of course, you can formulate one for yourself. So how might we design a baby tracker app that seamlessly integrates into a new parent's daily routine, making it easy to log baby activities with minimal effort? And I already showed you this sketch, but included it again. And so please use these 3 to 5 hours to collaboratively ideate. And you will find all the instructions and guidance at the end of this presentation. For instance, I will give you a step-by-step guide, recommendation on how to allocate your time, and so on. So first, please read the project overview and the persona's description, then conduct some secondary research. For instance, collect existing solutions, look at some best practices, read articles about what problems first-time parents have. And you can also check out Facebook groups, subreddits, and other social media channels to better understand your target audience. And then please pick a how might we question, conduct 2 rounds of crazy eights, then create storyboards showing an imagined future where your application already exists. And then you can continue with user flows and creating a master flow. And then you can choose 1 or 2 screens to sketch out. And it's an optional step, and I don't know how much time you will have, but after finishing the exercise, feel free to present your ideas to other teams. And if you enjoyed this little project, I encourage you to do some proper research, like conduct user interviews or diary studies, and then synthesize your research, do some more ideation, and then create a design concept. And who knows, maybe it will become a good portfolio piece. And finally, I would like to highlight that time boxing is key. So please, one of you just take the role of the moderator for today. It's also a good practice for later if you want to be a facilitator. And so I included all my advice and the recommended time frame for each exercise. And if you add all the minutes, you get 3 hours. So you will be able to take breaks or extend the activities you especially like. So for instance, in case of secondary research, my recommendation is to collect resources individually for 30 minutes and then use 5 minutes per team member to share your findings. But it's also fine to use 10 or 15 minutes per team member. And I also added my sketch about secondary research. And please also check the speaker notes of this presentation. So please read both the slides and the speaker notes, because I added some additional tips there. And so we are going to share this presentation right after this lecture with you. So these are Crazy 8 round 1, 2, storyboarding, part 1, part 2, user flow, master flow, and UI sketching. And so good luck with your practice activity. And thanks for your attention and for having me today. And please let me know if you have any questions, and feel free to reach out to me on social media.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Krisztina, for an amazing talk. This was fantastic. Now would be a good time for everyone to post some questions you have. So for our students, post some questions about the exercise. For the people that are kind of auditing this lecture, please post any questions you have about the lecture here. We'd love to answer those now. And I do think there are some questions posted as well. So the first one is coming from Diogo. I don't know why that doesn't show up in here. But Diogo is asking, what sketching tools do you use and how do you integrate them with Figma or Sketch? Do you only sketch at the start of a project? How do you present sketches to teams and stakeholders?
Okay, so what sketching tools I use? Usually I use pen and paper. Just 1 second. Sharpies are my favorites. Yeah, and these very basic
Oh,
Stabilo
I got
pens.
those ones too.
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite
So
too.
yeah, but of course I have some colored ones. So and I use the plainest copy paper, nothing special. Of course, I have a collection of fancy notebooks, but those are not really needed. And as I mentioned, I use the concepts and Procreate as well, but really the pen and paper is my favorite. And how do you integrate them with Figma or Sketch? I use Figma, and as I mentioned, I also use FigJam or Miro, and I always have a scanner on my desk, but it's also a good technique to just make a picture of your sketch and then you can send it to yourself or directly upload to these online canvas tools. So, for example, if we are just conceptualizing something and creating some early concepts or ideas, I can just upload these rough sketches to Figma, and we can create separate pages for inspiration, for example. And do you only sketch at the start of a project? Absolutely not. So I know that it's a design course, but in reality, design processes are not that linear, of course, and there are many types of projects. So it can be very useful at any stages, I believe, and it also depends on the type of the project. So if it's a redesign or it's a greenfield project and we design something very new, it also depends on the scope of the project. So a whole website redesign with hundreds of pages or just one little feature, but not only at the start, of course. And how do you present sketches to teams and stakeholders? Yeah, again, it depends, our favorite answer as designers, but you can include sketches in presentations. So for instance, it's a good technique if you are not collaborating with stakeholders or domain experts on a daily basis, so they are not embedded in your team, then you can create summary presentations at some of the milestones of your projects, and you can include your sketches in these presentations if you want. I also showed my technique of creating sketches in advance, and then I create copies and give one stack of sketches to everyone in the room so that they can really just touch it and write on it and see my sketches and annotate them and so on. So yeah, it really depends on the goal and how close we are working together with these stakeholders.
Okay, thanks so much for that. Now, this is a more practical question that came in from one of our students. How are we meant to collaboratively sketch these things as a team? He was also asking if there's some form of online collaborative sketching software that they can use. And I think you already mentioned FigJam and Miro. I mentioned that in the assignment as well. So I think the students might also not be aware that you can use these on a tablet. If you want to do sketching on a tablet, Miro and FigJam both allow you to draw things now.
Yeah, I didn't know that they won't be together in real life in person. But of course, yeah, they can do this remotely. You only need one free Figma account, start a new FigJam file, and as I said, you can just take your phone and just do some photos of your sketches and upload them to FigJam.
Yeah, there was also some internal questions that came in about the logistics of this. I know that Melanie was asking, because of the asynchronous environment here, if you only have 3 to 4 hours to work synchronously in the team with pens and sticky notes. Now, of course, as this might not be the case because our program is online, people are all over the place, schedules are all over the place, it might not be able to coordinate that. Of course, they could use FigJam and work virtually in bits of time throughout the day. I know that you've outlined this as a synchronous activity, but I think this can also be done asynchronously without any problems. Even what you mentioned with the sticky notes, I think people can also take pictures of sticky notes, upload those to FigJam and Miro, right? And then come in after.
Yeah, one important thing is that each exercise uses this working alone together method. So students can work alone, but it's also a very important step to share their ideas with each other and then build on each other's ideas. So I think it would require some synchronous activity if it's possible, but of course it can be async as well, and then maybe meeting together at the end of this 3 to 4 hour period.
Yes, yes. Just to kind of fit into that, because some students have these questions as well in terms of having that time slot. Again, to emphasize for all the students that are watching, you don't need to coordinate this to be a common time. Sure, for the crazy eights, it would probably be good if you can find asynchronous time, but that doesn't need to be long. That just needs to be a couple of minutes in the day. Like, so even if you just find a half an hour that you can collaboratively work on those, that's fine. Otherwise, do not worry about not having a time to sync up with this. You can do this asynchronously. That is perfectly fine.
Yeah,
so
just agree. Yeah, just agree on a how might we question, and then you can conduct this secondary research on your own, some crazy eight storyboards, user flows, and UI sketches, and then you can have a meeting together and share everything and modify the things together and arrive to a common solution. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I think that answers Melanie's and Rafa's questions. And yeah, again, if you have more questions, I'll be available afterwards to help you through that. So this is for our students if you have more questions about that. There is also a question about if if there's a replay of the deck. Now, I've already posted that throughout your presentation, that this is available on YouTube. You can scan that QR code here if you're joining us on another platform, and you can easily access the YouTube recording or after the fact. I don't know, Krisztina, if you want to share the deck. Our students have access to the deck, so they can see it. I don't know if you want to share it with the public. That's up to you. But the students have access to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That is that. Now, if there are no more questions, I don't know if there are any more questions coming in. I think the most questions are about the logistics. Again, keep in mind, asynchronous logistics are fine. This is sort of in an ideal case, you can run this as a workshop, and Kristina's very much used to running these things as a workshop. But in our case, we don't need to run it as a workshop. We can run it asynchronously as long as you decide on the how might we questions beforehand. You're pretty much good to go. You can do the other activities async, maybe come in for the crazy eights, and that should be working fine. And of course, I'm available all day for anyone that has any questions throughout these assignments. So I'll help you. And if I need to check in with Krisztina, I'll do that as well. And we'll make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make sure that everyone has access. Okay, well, I think if that is it, I think from my end, I just wanted to ask you about this. Now, having compared these two ways of doing things, because we were, of course, already talking about how do you do this virtually? How do you do this if you're not located in the same space, which is the case for a lot of our students. But you still want to have the fun of writing stuff on paper. Is there any tool that that kind of automates this in a way that's even quicker than just you taking a phone and taking pictures and then uploading it to a thick Jamboard? I know that Post-it had a tool at some point that you could actually take a picture of several Post-its and then you could import that into a Miro board and it would actually do text recognition and all that stuff. But that is only true for written notes. Now, of course, if you do sketches, it doesn't do that at the same level, unfortunately.
Yeah. If you can sketch digitally, so you have a tablet around and a pencil for that, then it might solve it. But usually I recommend this way, so using usual pen and paper, because everyone has a pen and a paper at home.
Yeah.
Having tablets, it's not always the case. Yeah. And one technique I used, but it's I only used it in an educational setting, is that I have my phone as a document camera on a little standy, and it records my hand and pen and paper, and this works as a camera, and it's broadcasted to the participants so that they can see as I draw, and they can draw along with me. But it's a one-to-many relationship, so not everyone has this setup, of course.
Yeah. And I think this is another inspiring message from Melanie here. I also have zero drawing skills. So this was actually when I first found your work, and I'm like, I can probably do this. I felt like you lowered the barrier enough for me to say, okay, we can actually do this in a way that works out.
Just remember the giraffe,
Exactly. Okay, well, thanks again so much. That was super inspiring. Again, I think everyone's learned a lot here, and I think we can all take away a little bit of knowledge about visually expressing our ideas. There's a lot of tools that you've provided for us that enable us to approach our design in a more visual way, and I think that's super useful. So thanks again so much for taking the time today, and I will be in touch with the students' assignments as well, so that you could have a look at some of the
that would be great. Thanks. And good luck with your semester, students.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, bye everyone. Thanks
bye
so much.
Everyone.